I'd like to welcome everybody back. This is meeting number 7 on Monday, September 12th, 2022. I'm Councillor William Riley. I'll be the chair of tonight's meeting. A note to members of the public, due to contain the efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19 and protect all individuals, the council chambers will not be open to the public to attend a standing committee and or council meeting until further notice. The public may submit comments for matters that The public may submit comments for matters that are on the agenda to jdyson@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 on the day of the meeting. Comments submitted will be considered as public information and will be read into the public record. This meeting, as well as being live streamed and recorded, and will be available on the township website or on social media. So at this point, I'm going to read the land acknowledgement statement. The township of West Lincoln, being a part of the Niagara region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steep in rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wenowak, the Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the First Credit Nation, the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the regional municipality of Niagara, with all Indigenous people, past and present, is promoting the wise stewardship of the land on which we live. So at this point, I'm going to look around the room to see if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest. Not seeing or hearing any. I will note that Councillor Yonker has sent his regrets. Other than that, everyone else is in attendance here in person, which is great. First time we've had in a long time here. Before I go beyond that, I'm going to go to Councillor Ganane, who's going to just make a little statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out for members of the public who happen to be watching the live streaming or watch this at some other point in time, that the photo of the Queen is normally behind the chair in our council chambers, and tonight it is shrouded in black as per the protocol that's appropriate for the passing of our Queen, Queen Elizabeth. And it will remain that way during that time. So in case you were wondering why there's this big black space in behind, that would be the reason for that. We're just following the acceptable protocol. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so at this point, we're going to move forward to our public meeting, which is under our agenda 4.1. It's a zoning bylaw amendment, 4981 Regional Road 20, an application for an extension to a temporary use bylaw that has been submitted by Upper Canada Consultants on behalf of the property owners of 4981 Regional Road 20. And that file number 1601-01122. So we're just going to move over to the planning meeting note. So I'm going to state again that this is a public meeting to consider an extension to a temporary use bylaw submitted by Upper Canada Consultants on behalf of Fred and Rebecca and Niagara Pallets for the property located at 4981 Regional Road 20, file number 1601-01122. I must state that the Planning Act requires in section 3412 that before passing a zoning bylaw amendment, council must hold at least one public meeting for the purpose of informing the public in respect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. The purpose of this meeting is to receive comments and answer questions from the public regarding the zoning bylaw amendment submitted by IBI Group, Inc. on behalf of Cole and Vanessa Stevenson and Patrick Givens. We stress...
Sorry, Mr. Chair, that's a mistake there.
All right, so I'm going to back up a little bit. So this is a typo here. All right, so I'll just go back. So nothing really changed. We're still going to take a step back as far as the Planning Act goes. We're still required under section 3412, but instead the purpose of this meeting is to receive and answer questions and comments for zoning bylaw amendment submitted by, and I believe it was, who is it? Fred and Rebecca, I know from Niagara Pallets, but who is their consultant? It was Upper Canada Consultants. So I bet clarity there. We stress that at this point, no decision has been made on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and any comments received will be taken into account by council in their consideration. I will also note that under the Planning Act, Section 3413, that council advised the public that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of West Lincoln before the bylaws pass, that person or public body is not entitled to appeal that decision of council for the Township of West Lincoln to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So at this point, I'm going to go to the Deputy Clerk to please advise the method and dates by which notice of the public meeting was given.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Proper notice was given by way of mail distribution to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property and email circulation to all departments and agencies on August 17th, 2022, and posted on the township's website.
Excellent, thank you. So at this point, I'll go to Senior Planner Gary Borma to please explain the purpose and reason for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you. An application for a one-year extension to a temporary use bylaw has been submitted by Mr. Craig Rowe of Upper Canada Consultants on behalf of the owners of 4981 Regional Road 20, Fred and Rebecca Vruktoveen. 4981 Regional Road 20 is located on the north side of Regional Road 20, east of Bismarck and west of Silverdale Road. The one-year extension to a temporary use bylaw has been applied as the last temporary use bylaw approved by council has expired, and the commercial use of storing pallets on a portion of the property is not permitted in the township zoning bylaw under the agricultural A zone of which the property is zoned. In February of 2020, council approved a temporary use bylaw for a period of 2 years to permit the use of a portion of the property for pallet storage related to the Niagara pallet operation, which the Vruktoveens own and is mainly located west of Smithville on South Guernsey Road 8. According to the township's records, the commercial use appears to have been existing on this property since around 2004. A temporary use bylaw was originally applied for in 2005 following a complaint in order to give the owners some more time to find a suitable location for their business. In 2009, additional applications for zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment were submitted to the township, but were later withdrawn after it was evident that there was lack of regional support. A further complaint was received in late 2019, and the applicants submitted a temporary use bylaw, which was approved in February 2020 and expired in February 2022. The applicants have argued that the approval should be extended by approximately 6 months due to COVID-19 and some provincial regulations which were implemented by the province to help assist with the backlog in the provincial court system. While we have not yet fully confirmed if that's the case, regardless, the bylaw has since expired, as a 6-month extension would have brought them to the end of August. The extension request has been made made along with a cover letter stating that they need more time to fully relocate the business to the property on South Guernsey Road 8, where they have a couple of additions proposed. Temporary use bylaws can be approved by municipalities under the Planning Act for a period of up to 3 years for applications not dealing with garden suites. They can also be accompanied by temporary use agreements. Temporary use bylaws follow the same approval process as a zoning bylaw amendment under the Planning Act. So a statutory public meeting is required, and which is being held this evening. The township's official plan has policy regarding temporary use bylaws, stating that council shall satisfy itself that the proposed use is temporary and will not create detrimental effects on the surrounding area. Temporary uses that are not farm related shall not be permitted within the unique or good general agricultural area. Township staff, through our staff report, which is also on the agenda this evening, have requested that the applicant address the township's official plan policies in this regard and show to the township staff how this business can be fully relocated to another property within 1 year. The region of Niagara has also been circulated on this application, and last week provided comments that they are not in support of this application, as the application does not align with the agricultural policies within the regional and provincial policy plans. Staff are recommending the preparation of a recommendation report following any input received by the public this evening and following the provision of the additional information as requested in our report. And I believe Mr. Craig Rowe from Upper Canada Consultants is also available on the meeting this evening, and I'm not sure if he has a presentation, but he may wish to speak to this application further. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Garrett. I'll go to Craig right now then. Craig, are you there? Would you like to speak to this, or do you believe everything?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Good evening, everyone. I'm here with Fred Ruckbein, owner of Niagara Pallet. No formal presentation this evening. I think what we took away when we received the report on Friday is it kind of spoke to us that there was a need for more information, or there wasn't a ton of clarity about kind of what's going on here. So I thought it might be just beneficial for the members of the planning committee. We're just going to give a quick rundown of what's happened since February of 2020 and where we're at now, and how we think that our application is appropriate to move forward, and that we're really close to finishing off. So as members of this term of council would remember, we were before you in February 2020. Our clients at that time had a site plan approved expansion of the Niagara Pallet facility on the subject lands, but we're seeking to do a more fulsome expansion. But in order to do that, it required the relocation of some materials, some which were unfortunately being still stored on the site over in Bismarck. And what we asked at that time is that we could have a 3-year temporary use, which is permitted under the Planning Act. We asked for 3 years. It was recommended to provide 2, and that we would have to come back after 2 years if we wanted some more time on that. So that was passed in mid-February, and then we all know what happened about a month later in March. Everything came to a grinding halt. So we persevered through that in 2020. We had a lot of work to do on our end. Niagara Pallet, to do the expansion, we actually had to do a severance on the lands next door. So we need to go through a full committee of adjustment process, acquire and sever lands. Part of that included a watercourse relocation, which came with conditions regarding an MPCA permit. So we were into that for biological study, the preparation of detailed landscape plans for that area, and then the clearance of those conditions. So we obtained that provisional consent approval in June of 2022. And then as we were working with the full site and knew the full scope of everything we were doing, we then provided our first submission of site plan approval in December 2020. We were provided with comments at that time, and some comments still remained outstanding from some of the agencies and departments on different issues. We made our second submission of site plan approval in November of 2021, and then our latest submission in May 6th of 2022 of this year. We completed the severance, just to back up, in June of 2021. The lands are now in the ownership of our client, and the MPCA permit was finally issued in the summer as well, to allow us to do the restoration of and relocation of that watercourse. We just received some additional comments on our site plan application about 2 weeks ago, which has resulted in, we've been requested to include another access to the site. So from a design perspective, I wouldn't say it's an overly significant edit, but it's big enough that it does trigger changes to all of our plans. So I think what I'm trying to convey to the township is that we are in the township's hands right now, and we've been working through the process with your staff, working to obtain all of our comments and to finalize our plan so we can obtain site plan approval, get our building permits, and get this structure up, and then being able to move everything off site. So that is where we are right now. I'm not sure if Fred has really anything to add to that, but you may have heard that there's been some grants awarded to Niagara Pallet to continue to grow and expand in the township, which we feel is very valuable. And although I can sympathize and understand with the position of Niagara Region on this, the position that our client is in is kind of a catch-22. He needs this extension, which he originally asked for. He asked for the 3rd year, and it would have allowed him to finish the project off. So we're just looking to get a little bit more time. One of our biggest holdups, I will mention, is that we need to do an archaeological assessment. Was brought to our attention just this year. So now the archaeologist is luckily going out on Wednesday. They've been rained out a couple times from the weather, so they'll be on site once we have the all clear from them. Then we can finish off the site plan drawings, get them back into the township within a couple of weeks for review, and hopefully get some conditional permits for the building and to get the site plan agreement in hand. So from our standpoint, we feel that we're in the right spot and that this temporary extension is certainly appropriate. The justification was accepted previously, and things really haven't changed since that first submission back in 2020, except things took longer than expected because with COVID, very difficult to move through the process, get land use approvals, construction materials, professionals. It's being felt throughout the region. So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Fred's available as well if you have any questions for him. I think what we just wanted to present to the council is just to demonstrate that we are working to get this done, and we're very close, and this extension will let our client get the building in the ground, get this up, generate more employment in the town, get those materials off that site.
Excellent. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, if I can add, the structure, the 20,000 square foot that we need is on the ground, landed about a month ago, and I was hoping to have permits in place for the foundation and have this entire saga behind me and constructing it, but still a date.
Okay, thank you. At this point, we'll move forward, go to public submissions. So I'm going to ask members of the gallery if there's any oral or written submissions from anyone present on this Zoom meeting regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. I would like to stress that this may be the only public meeting held with respect to this application. Therefore, if any members of the public that are in attendance at this Zoom meeting would like to make their comments and or provide a written comment, they should do so by using one of the two options. Option one, if you're using a computer or smartphone, you're going to just raise your hand, and which that control can be found in your Zoom options. Or if you called in through a landline, you're just going to hit *9, and that will notify staff that you've raised your hand as well. Once you've been acknowledged to speak, we're going to ask that you unmute your microphone. It is important that you provide your comments now, if you have not done so already in writing or verbally, as the OLT, Ontario Land Tribunal, may not consider comments made during any other council and or committee meetings. Also, anyone wishing to speak, we do require, it's a little redundant here, but you are required to unmute your microphone to talk, but then we do ask that once you're done speaking that you remute your microphone. And prior to speaking, I will ask that you state your name and address for the record. So at this point, if I go to IT just to see if there's any members of the gallery who would like to speak to this. Well, we got a full house there, but no one's put their hands up, so we're going to move to members of, I'm not seeing anybody else there, right? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go to members of committee. Do any members of committee have any oral written submissions on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Please note the members of committee must make their comments now, as the Ontario Land Tribunal may not consider comments made at any other council or committee meeting. Any member wishing to speak is required to unmute their microphone or turn on their microphone to talk. And once you're finished, we do ask that you turn off your microphone or mute your microphone. That would, sure. Yeah, so if you have questions, this is the time to ask. So I have Councillor Rayner first, then Councillor Trombetta, and then Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Boerema. Garrett, what's the township's position on this, considering the fact that the region has opposed it?
Through the chair to Councillor Rayner, I'll give the maybe the political answer that we're still reviewing this application, and we hope to bring a recommendation report forward. Seeing that no members of the public provided comments this evening, we will wait and see until what Mr. Rowe can provide, basically that statement to us, maybe in the form of an email or in writing, that we can review it fully. Our main concern with the application was we were here 2 years ago, and the township staff recommended approval, and I believe the region was not in favor at that time, but township staff still recommended approval to allow the applicant enough time to relocate his business, but the township staff only recommended 2 years at that time. So this is only a 1 year extension, but we want to have some level of certainty that the relocation can actually happen within 1 year, if 1 year is to be recommended for approval, that there's essentially enough space at their site on South Grimsby Road 8, as there's approximately 1.7 hectares of this property that's being used for pallet storage. And I believe, and maybe Craig can correct me if I'm wrong, I think just about an acre of land was added to this property. So we just want to understand how this transition will occur so that in a year's time, we're not necessarily in the same position again, needing another application for another temporary use permit. And I see Brian's come on here, so he might have something additional to say.
Mr. Director, did you have something you want to add to that?
Just through you, Mr. Chair. The only thing to add is in addition to what Garrett said, Garrett's right. The last time we dealt with the temporary use issue, the region was opposed as well. And it's a bit of a fine line or balancing act between trying to find a resolution to this matter that works through the planning process versus ending up in court through a bylaw enforcement matter. So my hope is that we can work with the applicants to achieve something that is a solution that's workable and not have to incur legal costs in court. So, stay tuned on that front. We'll see what we can come up with.
Okay, I'll go back to Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My comment with regards to that is I believe the township now is of the opinion that this extension has got to be one that will end up with a result. The reasons that the applicant had with regards to the fact that it wasn't completed are legitimate with COVID and everything else. So now that this is basically past us, we basically want to get this thing done, get it over with, and move forward. Since the region is not supported in the beginning and we went ahead, then I really don't have a problem just because the region didn't want it. This is a constituent that lives in West Lincoln. We've got to try to work and make this thing go. I believe the reasons why it couldn't be are legitimate, but now if we can finalize that with the assurances that it will go through within the year period, I think that would be fair and reasonable as far as myself supporting it. The other thing, of course, is this is going through as a technical report tonight, so it will be approved under item P68-22, so long as staff are comfortable that they will have something put together to present back to council that will put this hard and fast so that we can put this behind us by the year period. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor. Can you just turn your mic off there?
Yep.
All right, so Councillor Trombetta, and then I have Councillor Burke, then you want to go after? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of agree with Councillor Rayner. I know the applicant. I have sat with them, and we went over the property. We have spoken on the phone on multiple occasions. He is willing and he's ready. I understand that there was some delays, and obviously we know why, because the whole world was delayed, but I know he's been helpful in receiving my calls when we had some residents of concerns, and he's offered nothing but to try and help in those concerns, but he's waiting on some other things from the obviously permit issues to kind of move forward that he needs to kind of help with obviously in progressing the facility. So in speaking with them, I know that he's ready to go. He's just waiting on us. So I don't have an issue here, as well as Councillor Rayner said. So again, and I guess it's talking with him and seeing how it all is going to unfold together is he's ready to go, and he's just waiting on us. So let's see this out. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Broderick, then Mayor Bilsma.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Mr. Rowe and the owner. I don't want to pronounce your last name incorrectly, so I'm going to call you the owner of Niagara Pallets. Although it may be simple for some of us to assume the pandemic has, come into play, but was just hoping for a little bit of a recap on what specifically and how the pandemic played a role in the lagging of time to get all of this put into place. If you could just give us a brief summary so that we and the public can understand that a little bit more thoroughly in respect to what was really the things that had come, in your way in getting this completed on time.
Certainly, and my comments are with due respect to the planning department. We work with them closely. A lot of it came down to the ability to schedule certain meetings, moving our consent application forward, fulfilling those conditions, trying to get those qualified professionals on board. Remote work has been very challenging the past couple of years, especially from the consulting side of things. Scheduling meeting, having the appropriate time to have a call and make submissions when people from different departments are in different areas. Our process hasn't proceeded as quickly as it typically would in what we'll call normal times. We have been waiting on comments from some township departments for close to 2 years now, and we do have them, and we're glad that we have them and we can move forward and make those edits. It's really just been difficult to navigate over the past couple of years, and it doesn't all lie with the township. We had to have some sit-down meetings with Niagara Region and sort out some of their concerns, some disagreements there, and specifically about the natural heritage in the channel, what was expected of us from MPCA versus what Niagara Region was looking at. Mr. Behrman was helpful in that meeting that we had with them, and I believe we had that in I think June of this year. We were able to resolve a lot of the larger regional issues, but the one that stayed was the archaeological assessment. They've been backed up because of things that are not so much COVID, but just you're probably well aware of in the past 6 months, significant changes in the labor force. People are moving all around from job to job. They've had some pretty slim crews. We were supposed to have our ARC done in August, then we got pushed to September 9th. We got whacked with all that rain, so they got washed out at some other sites and delayed, but they've indicated that they'll be going on site on the 14th, maybe the 15th if it doesn't cooperate. So we're hoping Wednesday or Thursday, once we get the all clear on archaeology, then we can go with confidence and finalize our drafting work and make our submissions. So just a little difficult in the review process, and some of our external consultants that have been helping us out. And that's kind of where we've landed, but we've tried to keep the dialogue going, and we have for the past couple of years. And as I said in my opening remarks, we're really, really close with this one. We just need to finalize a few things, and then we get a permit and start getting some work underway on site.
That's a great answer, and certainly as the other two councillors had indicated, this industry is important to our community, and we'll be looking forward to seeing this go through successfully. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mayor Bylsma.
So my questions to Mr. Bourma, just do we have an indication or an idea of what cleaned up or what would satisfy the temporary use? So, for example, I'm sure that there's, my understanding is that there's pallets stored there. Now, I have a property and there's pallets kicking around. Are we looking for something that there's not any evidence of a pallet kicking around, or is there an idea of what cleaned up looks like, or any how does that play out? I'd hate to come back or is it just a satisfaction that neighbors stop complaining because it's been reasonably they've been satisfied? So what indicates that this is a quote unquote a cleaned up and the temporary use is no longer necessary?
Through the chair, I think that's a good question. I believe that getting into compliance with the zoning bylaw is what staff are looking for. So obviously it's an agriculturally zoned property. So if there were a couple pallets kicking around, that's not necessarily anything that goes against the agricultural zoning. But most definitely the operation there that exists today is directly related to a commercial business of pallet storage. So I don't believe that staff would be unreasonable in reviewing the site following its cleanup and ensuring that it meets the zoning bylaw requirements for an agricultural property.
Okay, so if I could just further, Mr. Chair, and then is there any operations, and this question can go to Mr. Vroegtroveen himself, but are there any operations on the Highway 20 site, or is it just purely storage at this point?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. I'll defer that to Fred.
Yeah, at this point, sorry, I'm not quite sure what the process is, to the chair, to the mayor. Basically, we're using it for storage. Primarily, the indoor storage is the important part of that site. I'm going to say the bulk of the materials that are stored outside could be stored at another site, but they've been there for a period of time. And as we're using the indoor storage, we've left those items there. But I also don't expect this to take a full year. I expect that we could be out of there sooner than a full year, as soon as we do have the construction of the next phase of our property at South Grimsby Road 8 built. So.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I'm satisfied, Mr. Chair. I yield the floor.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to look around. Councillor Ganania, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very briefly, this has been an ongoing file for a very, very long time, and I know there have been complaints from residents, but I know there were also some concerns many, many years ago when that site was first established and the number of pallets were there from our fire department. We were sort of involved at that time as well. And so I really was happy to hear Mr. Vorma allude to the fact that, that this is supposed to be the end in sight and that will be moved off. But I think my question is just to hear you say that, Fred. And you just barely started to it when you talked about the fact that you don't expect it to take the full year. Are you anticipating that there actually will be room to remove most of those, and I'm not talking about a few lying around here or there, but most of what is there now on the highway site to your new location? Is there going to be room there to accommodate that?
Yes, I expect that we'll have that site cleaned up in under 1 year and completely be moved out of there.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And actually, Mr. Rowe, just to you, I want to say how much I appreciate the fact that as you talked about all the delays going on over and over again, it sort of sounded as you were speaking like it was our staff mostly at fault. So thank you very much for talking about the problems you had with conservation and with the region as well, and the various times trying to get things. It's easy to lay blame on the staff that's here, but obviously we aren't the only ones that have a say in anything, and I think our staff have done the best they can as well to accommodate everybody through COVID. And we know that the region is doing that as everybody has tried, but laying the blame in any one direction is not good. So thank you very much for sort of spreading out that blame for the delays.
All right, thank you. I'm going to move forward and let the public know that please be advised that a technical report is being considered by the committee this evening, and that a recommendation report will be forthcoming to a future committee and or a council meeting. We also like to advise you that once committee and or council has made a decision with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment, and if approved by council, a notice of its passing will be circulated with an appeal period. If you wish to be notified of council's decision, please ensure that you email the township clerk, Joanne Shime, at jshime@westlincoln.ca. Anyone else who is interested in observing future council and committee discussions about a particular bylaw should not solely rely on mail notices and miss the opportunity to attend an applicable meeting. It is suggested that you reach out to, or you watch the township website for posting of agendas to review items that will be discussed at council or committee. These agendas for the meetings are posted on the township's website after 4 p.m. on the Friday prior to the meeting. Additionally, the meeting schedules are also noted on the township website for the public to view. If you wish to receive notices by email, it is suggested that you contact our township clerk to advise of that request, including your email along with your mailing address and phone number. This public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is concluded at the hour of 7:04 p.m. We'll move forward to our regular agenda now. Thank you. There they are. Thank you, Craig, and sorry I forget your partner's name there. Have a great night, or you're welcome to stick around as well. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and yeah, we look forward to wrapping this up and working closely with your team on this. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So moving forward, I'm going to ask the members of the committee here if there's any change in orders of items on the agenda. Not seeing or hearing any. We have no appointments tonight. I'm going to go back to Kevin real quickly. Did we get anyone into the gallery here? Not seeing anyone. So we're going to go to consent agenda items. There are none. We're motoring through. All right, communications. So under item P6722, Grant Bival, Clerk, Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, MPCA, Draft Land Securement Strategy 2022-2023. And there's a recommendation that the correspondence from the NPCA, Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, regarding the Draft Land Securement Strategy 2022-2023, dated September 2nd, 2022, be received. And that the correspondence reference above be referred to staff to request an extension of a comment submission to the MPCA for the first quarter of 2023 due to the upcoming 2022 municipal election and new term of council. So I'm going to need somebody to move that for me. I have Councillor Ganan, Mayor Billsma seconding it. Any comments or questions? I have Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just confused. Did NPCA not know there was election?
Well, I'm sure they knew. I feel that our staff is just, with taking on as many roles as they have, are anticipating, that they would like a little extra time to submit comments. So I think it's more or less just a...
Yeah, it's just a curious question, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Councillor Ganan?
Thank you. I'd like to suggest at this time that that our staff actually consider reaching out to the Conservation Authority as they're looking at land and securing more land, that they actually have the Conservation Authority reach out to the region and perhaps take a look at our lagoon situation. I think if that's a piece of land, the fact that they took over a very small part at Rockway and made that part of the Conservation Authority, this, I think to me, if there was a way that they were looking at further, smaller portions of land, that our lagoon might turn out to be, that area might turn out to be a very good conservation area. So,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. I'm going to ask our director to just, if you could pop your screen on there for a quick second. Would you like that recommendation or suggestion that Councilor Ganand just brought up as part of direction in the motion, or are you fine just taking that, if I have general consensus here, taking that information and just relaying that to the MPCA?
Through you, Mr. Chair, my thought would be that over the next month and a half or so, staff will do a review of the report and prepare a recommendation report to a planning committee, December or January, whatever seems to work. And at that point, we'll make sure we build in the comment that was just mentioned, if it's generally consensus of the committee, to bring that forward. And that way it would end up on their desk in a written form at the Conservation Authority's end.
All right, so I have Mayor Bylsma, then I have Councilor Rayner.
So I think what's being presented to us is the first step, or maybe it's the second step. You know, the NPCA has done some work obviously on this. It's the second step where they're going to, you know, their partners, their stakeholders, which is the municipalities, to come and say, hey, you know what, this is a proposed draft, and have comment on it. And of course, to Councilor Rayner's point, you know, the NPCA keeps plugging along, right? So they do that knowing that there's going to be elections, but, you know, it's totally legitimate that we ask for an extension on the comment period because it allows a new term of council to make comment on it. And I think that's appropriate at this time, even though, just like the utilities and stuff, the work goes on and they work with whoever shows up at the time. So I think that's legitimate. But further, and then just to speak briefly to what Councilor Ganand talked about, I think what we have to understand that the NPCA has numerous, and you'll read that in the proposal. There's numerous, how would you say, factors or inputs that go into the decision-making process, and I think. One thing that I really appreciated for the short time that I was at the NPCA is that they're not of the mind, they're not close to the concept, but they're not necessarily looking for everybody's, for example, cast-off lagoon in order to rehabilitate it. As important as that may or may not be, I think the Conservation Authority in the name is looking for pieces of tracts of land that are also, and maybe more significantly, untouched. And that would be part of their process, where they're looking for land that can be conserved, not necessarily land that needs to be rehabilitated, which, sometimes might be referred to as the gift that keeps on taking in terms of cost. So, I think ultimately what we have is a comment period where comments like that can be made, but they've put forward a document that allows for multiple types of uses, of which the lagoon is legitimately one that we can put forward. But understand that their land acquisition is to, how would you say, preserve or conserve a slice of what Niagara looked like before we mucked about with lagoons and quarries and mud flats and stuff like that, which are nice when we can get them repaired, but ultimately getting those pristine old growth forests and stuff like that is equally important because of you don't have to rehabilitate them. So just some ideas and the concepts in terms of the commenting period is where that input can be put in without detracting anything from what previous speaker said about it, just to think broadly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Rayner?
Yes, thank you. This comment that Councilor Ganand brought up reminded me of the time when Councilor Harold Yonkert has some pictures of wildlife that he felt should be incorporated or looked after with regards to the lagoons, and I believe Regional Councillor Albert Witteveen was also involved in that. And he spent a fair bit of time and had a lot of photographs on what he felt would be an excellent wildlife habitat area. So maybe this all fits in.
I don't disagree with you.
So, thank you.
Any other members of, no, you're good? All right, I'll just mention briefly, I certainly agree, actually, with comments made by Councilor Ganane. I know even from the last few weeks, I've heard some residents actually, express concern of what's going to go on with that area in particular. So I don't think this is anything, a big ask to keep in there for comments or consideration, anything that we can preserve in West Lincoln. Why not? Whether it's man-made or natural, it still has wildlife there, and its potential is, sky's the limit. So. Anyways, not seeing any other comments or questions. My mover was Councillor Ganane. My seconder was Mayor Bylsma. Going to call the question. All those in favor? And that passes. Or carries, sorry. All right, so we're going to move forward to staff reports. So I have staff report 6822. It's on a different page. Technical. Let me just make sure I'm not. Yeah, it is. Okay. So it's a technical report, PD 79-2022, and it's the public meeting we had tonight, which is the 4981 Regional Road 20. Fred and Rebecca at Fructivine. I hope I got that right. Temporary use bylaw extension file number 1601-01122. And the recommendation reads as that technical report PD 79-2022 regarding 4981 Regional Road 20, temporary use bylaw file number 1601-01122 dated September 12, 2022 be received. And that the recommendation report be submitted to a future planning, building, environmental committee or council meeting once a full staff and agency review has been completed. So if I got Councillor Rayner as a mover, can I get a seconder? Councillor Braderick? Any questions or comments? Not seeing or hearing any. Call the question. All those in favor? And that passes. Or that carries, sorry. I don't know why I'm saying passes. All right, moving forward. So we have item 6922, and that is recommendation report PD 78-2022, zoning bylaw amendment for Leonard Snippa. And it's 5444 concession for road, file number 1601-01022. And the recommendation is that, my mouth keeps drying up. Recommendation report PD 78-2022 regarding zoning bylaw amendment, Leonard Snippa, 5444 concession for road, file number 1601-01022, dated September 12, 2022 be received. And that the application for zoning bylaw amendment for 1601-010-2022 submitted by Leonard Snippa and corresponding zoning bylaw be approved and passed, and that staff be authorized to circulate the notice of decision for the zoning bylaw amendment with the corresponding 20-day appeal period. So if I can get a mover and a seconder for that one, I got Councillor Rayner and Councillor Trombetta as a seconder. Any comment or questions? Not seeing or hearing, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that carries. Moving to item P7022, and it's a recommendation report, PD 80-2022, Bill 109, establish developmental control. And that recommendation report, PD 80-2022, regarding Bill 109, establish developmental control, dated September 12th, 2022, be received. And that the bylaw be passed to establish development control. Did I read that wrong the first time? No, I did. Okay, so to delegate approval authority and establish criteria with the Township of West Lincoln. So I need a mover and a seconder. I got Councillor Braderick and Mayor Bylsma. Any questions or comments? Not seeing or hearing, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that passes, or carries, sorry. All right, going to move forward to, actually that brings us to other business. So members of committee, do any members of committee have any other items of business? I got Councillor Ganane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very briefly, I want to point out what a wonderful fair weekend it was. The West Niagara Fair Board started off their planning not knowing what to expect, and were not disappointed. People came out in droves, and it was a very successful fair. And the weather held off yesterday enough that even those who are all about the demolition derby got to see that as well. And secondly, this weekend, coming on the Friday night, the 16th, is the chili soup and corn roast at Silverdale Hall. So those people who generally like to go to the dinners that they provide, this is the fall event coming up. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? No, we're good. Good. Yeah, I was able to go to the fair myself, had a fantastic time with the family. It was a beautiful weekend for it as well, minus the rain we got on Sunday, but I went Saturday where the sun was still shining. Yeah, well, it was great. It was like a zoo. It was great. The other thing I was going to mention was under the Santa Claus Parade Committee, this year, as far as a little bit of an update, they're going to be doing a night parade. So it's going to start at 5 p.m. I believe it's the start time. I could be wrong by a half hour, but I'm pretty sure it's 5 p.m. So something extra to look forward to as we approach into the holiday season there. I know we'll probably start hearing Christmas music in the next couple of weeks. They always like to put it long before the holidays, but right after Halloween, well, because we're close enough. And so anyways, I think it's pretty exciting. We're going to see a lot more normalcy return to our community, and we're going to kick it off with some holiday spirit in the evening, help those floats be a little bit more brighter and shine a little bit more spirit there. So thought I would share that. And and that's pretty much it for what I have there. So not seeing any other members of the committee. I have no new items of business. So at that point, there's no confidential items. So going to say I'm going to adjourn the meeting. So that brings us to the end of the meeting here. And so it is now 7:18 p.m. Have a great night, everyone, and we'll see you next week.